The Old Trafford managerial ejector seat has claimed another victim. Ruben Amorim has left the building. Now the dust has settled on his exit. Let's take a breath and look back over his tenure. Depending on which corner of the internet you poison your brain with, his departure is either a travesty of long-term planning, proof that the Glazer stench still lingers like radioactive fallout, or simply confirmation that he was a Portuguese fraud exposed by the mighty tactical rigour of Grimsby Town. Forget the all-caps YouTube titles promising Amorim explodes at INEOS or Ten Hag was right all along. We aren't doing that here. We're going to perform a calm, rational autopsy on the Amorim era, a period that promised a tactical revolution but ended up looking like someone trying to assemble IKEA furniture while wearing oven mitts. It was brief, it was confusing, and occasionally it was beautiful, but mostly it was just very, very stubborn. Today, we're looking at why the Sporting Lisbon wunderkind hit the Manchester United brick wall. We'll dissect his unwavering devotion to his system, the bizarre substitutions that made us question his sanity, the tactical tweaks that didn't tweak enough, and the spectacularly fast collapse that sealed his fate. Strap in, it's going to be a bumpy ride down memory lane, which is pretty much the only type of ride Manchester United offers these days. There is a very specific phase every Manchester United crisis goes through. First comes denial, then comes anger, then comes a manager whose Wikipedia page includes the words innovative system and clear philosophy. At which point large sections of the fan base conclude that the problem wasn't years of structural decay, but simply that nobody had thought of playing 3 centre-backs before. Enter Ruben Amorim. Young, impressive, articulate, hugely successful in Portugal, had just turned City over in style, permanently photographed looking like a man who has just sold football, and, on paper, exactly the sort of appointment Manchester United should never have made. Let's start with what Amorim genuinely is, because dismissing him as a fad manager would be lazy. At Sporting, Amorim rebuilt a club that had spent years oscillating between dysfunction and self-sabotage. He imposed order, clarity, and discipline. He won the league playing a highly structured 3-4-3, 3-4-2-1, developed players, and made Sporting tactically coherent in a way they had not been for a generation. This matters because Amorim's success is real. But success in one environment does not automatically scale. Especially not to Manchester United, which remains football's most hostile petri dish. Amorim is not wedded to his system. He is married to it. Joint bank account, shared Netflix password, matching centre-backs. The back three is non-negotiable. At Sporting, this worked because recruitment was aligned to the system, players were drilled relentlessly in positional discipline, the domestic league allowed controlled dominance, and European games were approached pragmatically. Manchester United, by contrast, do not recruit coherently, change Sporting leadership mid-project, have a squad assembled for at least 3 incompatible styles, and play in a league where tactical rigidity is punished weekly. A back three in the Premier League is a conditional tool. It works when players understand rotations and transitions instinctively, and when wing-backs are elite athletes with tactical intelligence. United have neither the personnel nor the institutional patience for this. Manchester United's squad is a museum of abandoned ideas, wide forwards who want isolation, centre-backs built for reactive defending, midfielders who struggle with positional responsibility. Amorim's system demands centre-backs comfortable stepping into midfield, wing-backs who can cover the entire flank and defend transitions alone, midfielders who recycle possession rather than freelance, and forwards who press on command, not vibes. United's squad has been assembled for managers with wildly different priorities. Retrofitting it into a proper, functional 3-4-3 would have required either a ruthless clear-out, 2 perfect transfer windows, or time Manchester United never allow. History suggested they would attempt none of these properly. The Premier League does not reward ideological purity. It rewards adaptability, depth, and the ability to survive weeks where everything goes wrong. Amorim's great strength is control. The Premier League specialises in removing it. Low blocks, transition merchants, set-piece exploitation, relentless physical pressure, tactical copycats. Once opponents work out the pressing triggers and wing-back spaces, the margin for error collapses. At Sporting, that margin exists. At United, it disappears far too quickly. And when the system creaks, Amorim's response historically is not reinvention. It is refinement, small tweaks inside the same structure. At United, that looked a lot like pure stubbornness. Manchester United love managers with a clear philosophy. They appoint them precisely so they can ignore the difficult structural work and pretend the philosophy is the strategy. Amorim arrived with a clear system, strong authority, immediate buy-in expectations. What he did not arrive with was protection from internal politics. A squad designed to execute his ideas or unlimited time to rebuild it. This is not a criticism of Amorim, it is an indictment of United. They do not nurture systems, they consume them. Amorim was linked repeatedly with Premier League roles. The interesting thing is not that clubs admire him, it's that none pulled the trigger. Why? Because his system requires structural commitment from the top. His success depends on aligned recruitment. His learning curve in England would be public and painful. Mid-table clubs fear the risk. Top clubs fear the rigidity. And United uniquely combine maximum exposure, minimum patience, maximum chaos. That is not a proving ground. It is a trap. Ruben Amorim is a very good manager with fascinating philosophies on the game. That is precisely why Manchester United should never have appointed him. They are not a club that gently transitions philosophies. They are a club that lurches between them, dragging managers under the wheels as they go. Amorim needs stability, structural backing, squad alignment, time. Manchester United offer noise, scrutiny, mismatch, 6 months of optimism, followed by existential dread. When Amorim arrived, we knew what we were getting. We were promised a defined style of play. We were promised identity, and boy did we get it. We got so much identity it practically choked us. Amorim didn't just prefer the 3-4-3, he was religiously devoted to it. If his house was on fire, he'd probably arrange the fire engines in a back three before letting them turn on the hoses. Initially, this was refreshing. After years of chaotic drift, seeing 11 players who actually seemed to know where they were supposed to stand on a football pitch felt like a revelation. The premise was sound. Overload the centre with those two narrow number 10s, let the wing-backs provide the width, and have the double pivot mop up everything in between. And for about a month, it looked brilliant. We were told this was the Sporting way. It was dynamic, it was aggressive. The passing triangles were sharper than Gareth Southgate's waistcoat game. We thought we'd cracked the code. But here's the thing about rigid systems in the Premier League. Once the opposition figures out the cheat code, you're in trouble if you don't have a plan B. And Amorim's plan B was usually just to do plan A, but louder. The reliance on the wing-backs became agonising. If Shaw or Dalot were having an off day, or, heaven forbid, were injured, which never happens at United, the entire offensive structure collapsed inward like a dying star. We ended up with 5 players occupying the same 10-yard strip of turf, all looking at each other while the opposition playmaker wandered laconically straight down the middle of the pitch towards our exposed centre-backs. It became predictable. Teams stopped pressing us high. They just sat back, let our centre-backs pass it sideways 40 times and waited for the inevitable turnover in the clogged midfield engine room. After going unbeaten for his first 3 games, we suddenly found ourselves losing 6 out of the next 8, and it barely improved from there. Amorim arrived promising a symphony. By the end, he was just mashing the same 3 keys on the piano over and over again, hoping for a different tune. Now, to be fair to the man, it's not true to say he never changed anything. He did tinker, but it was the tactical equivalent of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic while the iceberg was already ordering a second round of drinks. When the 3-4-3 stuttered, he wouldn't abandon the shape. Instead, he'd tweak the roles within it. This was Amorim's attempt to solve the biggest issue of his tenure, the midfield being totally overrun. A two-man midfield in the Premier League against elite pressing sides is a death wish unless your two midfielders are prime Roy Keane and N'Golo Kante. When Amorim dropped Bruno deeper, it did help us keep the ball, but it castrated our attack. We had possession, sure, but it was sterile possession, the kind that looks nice on Opta stats, but doesn't actually threaten the opposition goal. Meanwhile, Casemiro is left totally exposed against any team who played a midfield three, which was basically all of them once they figured us out. The tweaks were always reactive, never proactive. They were subtle adjustments designed to patch holes in the 3-4-3 dam, rather than accepting the dam had burst, and maybe we should try building a bridge instead. He was trying to win a Formula One race by slightly adjusting his wing mirrors when the engine was on fire. But if the starting tactics were rigid, the in-game management was pure, uncut, daddyist art. We have to talk about the substitutions, specifically the centre-back obsession. Picture the scene. It's the 55th minute. United are behind at home to a mid-table side whose entire squad costs less than Antony's left boot. We need a goal. The crowd is getting restless. You look to the bench. You expect an attacker, a winger, a chaotic striker. What does Amorim do? He takes off Lenny Yoro and Luke Shaw and brings on Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof. It happened so fast, so often, it became a grim running joke. Like for like defensive changes when chasing a game. The analytical argument, and I'm straining a muscle reaching for this, is that he wanted fresher legs to maintain the high defensive line and improve the speed of build-up from the back. If there's more recovery pace at the back, then you can push everyone else further up. In his mind, the system creates the chances, so you just need the best components in the system to keep it running smoothly. In reality, it was baffling. It killed momentum. It confused the players on the pitch, who spent 5 minutes figuring out who was marking whom, while the opposition just got on with attacking us. It signalled to the opposition that we were terrified of losing, rather than desperate to win. Whatever about bringing on someone slightly fresher or quicker than the person going off, you still have 3 centre-backs, 2 wing-backs getting increasingly nervous and dropping into a back 5, and a defensive midfielder all sitting deep, queuing up to mark the opposition's solitary forward. Meanwhile, the remaining 4 attackers get picked off by 7 or 8 defenders, and our win percentage remains record-breaking, and not in a good way. It felt like Amorim was playing Football Manager, clicked the wrong button, was too embarrassed to admit it, and just committed to the bit for 6 months. It wasn't losses against Arsenal, Manchester City or Liverpool that ended him. United managers are almost expected to lose those games now. It's part of the job description, like attending press conferences or pretending to know who the director of football is this week. And besides, United actually performed well in one-off games against the sides at the top of the table, winning at Anfield and the Etihad. However, some of the lows were just too low. Take the Europa League final if you aren't repressing the memory. Against lads at Spurs of all teams. 1-0 down with 10 to play, and he turns to Dalot from the bench. If only there were one of the most creative players of his generation, possibly with a point to prove against Spurs, sitting nearby. The current season did not start promisingly. Away to Fulham in August, he subbed on Dalot again when level, and then sent on 2 centre-backs in the last 5 minutes when supposedly chasing a winner. Days later, we were away to Grimsby Town, where we asserted our dominance by once again substituting a centre-back when behind, before crashing out on penalties. At least we lasted longer than against MK Dons that time. Eventually, the rigidity, the failed tweaks, and the bizarre subs coalesced into the perfect storm, the final collapse. What finally killed the Amorim era was the month of doom against the relegation fodder and mid-table sides that proper teams just deal with, even if they have a couple of players injured or on international duty. Let's start with the match at home to Everton on 24. Hilariously, the opposition go down to 10 men for fighting amongst each other. Rather less hilariously, for us anyway, we totally failed to penetrate a well-organised rearguard action, leaving 3 centre-backs to mark their lone centre-forward, with the wing-backs galloping back to supervise. Once again, Dalot is subbed on when behind. Lacey languished on the bench. After a decent win against Palace, we then have a diabolical West Ham side at home. Conceding an equaliser with 10 to play, once again we see Martinez on for sure, with Lacey and Mbeumo unused on the bench. We go away to a Wolves team with 2 points all season and win 4-1. A learning moment? Of course not. The following week we were at home to Bournemouth and scored 4 goals and still couldn't win. Naturally, there was a centre-back switch when behind. Then there is a tough fixture away to Villa. Shockingly, Bruno's invincibility spell wears off and he leaves the field early, to be replaced by Martinez, with Xerxes and Lacey still on the bench. They did get on eventually, but only in taking Sesko off while we were behind. Next up, Newcastle. Underperforming but a tricky fixture on paper. In order to prove a point, it seems, Amorim actually started with 4 at the back, and we went ahead. But then, there followed a bizarre series of in-game changes, another centre-back added for Casemiro. Then, as we were clinging on at the end and retreating ever closer to our own goal, Shaw and Martinez are taken off for Malaysia and Fredrickson. 4 days later, and Wolves are back at the theatre. Surely, we build on the impressive away performance and dispatch them at home. Of course not. Instead, our goal scorer is subbed off, and we get the now trademark swap of centre-backs when level late in the game. The final game away to Leeds resulted in a draw, which might have been acceptable in other circumstances, especially as there was a forward-thinking substitution that resulted in a goal for once, but it represented yet another lost opportunity to climb the table. Rumours suggested that in a debriefing after that game, Amorim blew his top with Jason Wilcox and left his position untenable, though he wasn't looking too upset the following day. Maybe he had forgotten his promise not to seek compensation if sacked. When you play a high-risk, complex system like Amorim's, it requires total buy-in and supreme confidence. When confidence evaporates, the system doesn't just degrade slowly, it shatters. The aura of the next big tactical genius vanished. In the end, he didn't look like a revolutionary. He looked like a supply teacher who had lost control of the classroom and was just praying for the bell to ring. So, how do we judge Ruben Amorim's time at Manchester United? He wasn't a disaster of Moyesian proportions. He didn't have as toxic a meltdown as Mourinho, nor the vibes-only hollowness of late-stage Solskjaer. Some of the statistics were actually looking up. Unfortunately, not the points or goals conceded ones. He was a man of principle, a man who believed in his 3-4-3 with the fervour of a zealot, and ultimately he was a man crushed by the sheer illogical weight of Manchester United Football Club. He tried to impose order on chaos, but Old Trafford feeds on chaos. It demands flexibility, pragmatism, and occasionally just throwing the tactics board out the window and telling the lads to run around a bit more, get stuck in, and get it in the box. Amorim couldn't do that. He lived by the system, and he died by the system. He leaves us not with trophies, but with a lingering confusion about why centre-backs kept spawning 75 yards from the opposition goal when we needed a winner. Goodbye, Rúben. Thanks for the triangles. We'll always have that first month. What do you think was the real reason Amorim failed? Was it the players, the board, or was his 3-4-3 just not cut out for the Premier League? Let us know in the comments below and try to keep the caps locked to a minimum.